Welcome to the Grow Your Business and Grow Your Wealth podcast with Gary Heldt. Gary is an expert in helping business owners put together a plan that will provide a better future for their businesses, themselves, and their families. On the podcast, Gary interviews other professionals who share his vision, and together they share secrets and strategies any business owner can use to build a better financial foundation for your business and your life.
Hey, welcome back to the podcast. This week, my guest is Alan Franks, and he is the founder and CEO of the Business Planning Institute and also the author of Empowering Money. He has over 15 years of experience specializing in cash flow management, smart debt use, real estate planning, and multi-generational wealth. He's known for helping young families and new professionals gain clarity, confidence, and long-term financial stability. Welcome, Alan.
Hey, Gary, thanks for having me today.
Great. So, Alan, tell us what the Business Planning Institute is.
That's right. Yeah, I think that bio might be a little bit outdated. So just like you, Gary, I'm a business owner, and I was watching a Kevin Hart comedy documentary. And he was talking about how, on a scale of 1 to 10, as a comedian, he felt like he was a 10 out of 10. As a business owner, he felt like he was a 2 out of 10.
Mm-hmm.
And buddy, that hit me hard. That was a spike right through the heart. And I was like, wow. Okay. As a financial advisor, I feel like I'm 10 out of 10. But as a business owner, I feel like I'm bootstrapping this thing, and I'm pulling my hair out, man. And so what I decided to do was just go on a self journey to be a better business owner. And I took courses, and I read books, and I started implementing these new ideas and systems and processes into my own business. And pretty soon, all of a sudden, it was miraculous. These things actually worked, right? And so what I realized, though, is that almost every single business owner was in the same predicament that I was in. They were really good at their trade or their craft, but running a business, they don't teach you that in school. I don't care if you've got an MBA from Wharton. I've met MBAs from Wharton. They don't know how to run a business, right? They're doing investment banking. They're doing consultant management. They don't teach you how to run a business in any school that's out there. And I studied entrepreneurial management in college. That was my degree. Still didn't know, right? So what I realized is that being a business owner is the ultimate personal journey, the ultimate journey of personal growth, right? And if I was having trouble with this, a lot of other people were too. So what we did is, after I basically went on this journey myself to make my business better, I said, you know what, there's a lot of business owners that we can help. So we started the Business Planning Institute with the idea here that if you think about a Venn diagram with you personally at the top circle, your finances bottom left or so, and then your business bottom right, they all overlap right there in the center. And that's where life happens. That's where business owners live, is at this intersection of them personally, financially, and business wise. And what we found is most business owners are broke. They're either broke personally from emotions, time, right, energy, or they're broke financially because they're putting everything into this business, or their business is broke because they're having to pull everything out of the business to, for their personal life, right? And so what we found is that each one of those circles will cap the other two. Your business will not outperform your leadership capacity as a person long term. Maybe short term, but not long term, right? Your business will suffer if your personal finances are having trouble. Your personal finances will suffer if your business is having trouble, right? So each one of these circles is capping the other. So what we found is, hey, if we could go in there and take a holistic approach here, helping the business getting up and running, helping people understand how to pay themselves tax efficiently, right? Tax advantagely there, and also helping them build as a person and look at owning a business as their own personal journey towards leadership, right? Helping them build that leadership potential, then we could really help them build their enterprise value, which is the value of that business, is one of the most important numbers. And if you ask any business owner what the value of their business is, they're going to stumble. They really don't know. And so that's where we decided to create the Business Planning Institute, is to help people understand that their business, like their 401k, like their stocks, like their real estate, is an asset that has a value that can be tracked.
So how do you help people with, because many people I'm going to say, own a job,
Yeah.
and they're not really a business owner, because if they went away for 3 weeks, okay, there would just be
Oh
a
yeah.
pile of stuff on their desk when they get back, if not the doors being locked. How do you help them really go from being that job owner to being a true business owner?
So Gary, before I answer your question on how we help, let me just make a bold statement. Most people should not be entrepreneurs. I'm
Correct.
sorry. They just
Agree.
should not, right? And as a matter of fact, being an entrepreneur is an avoidance behavior because they don't want to have a boss, right? They don't want to have to go to work from 9 to 5. But the truth is, in today's world, the corporate environment is so different in 2025 than it was in 2020 pre-COVID, where you don't have to be somewhere 9 to 5. If you need to go get your kids from the daycare, you can go and leave, right? A lot
Right.
more flexibility, right? And so what we found is that the benefits of being a business owner have actually really shrunk here lately. Why? Because, hey, healthcare costs have gone way up for business owners. Your W-2,
Yeah.
you get that really subsidized, right? It's a lot harder to set money aside when you're a business owner. Well, it's a lot easier to check a box and they match a 401k when you're W-2, right? You
Right.
go from having one boss or a couple managers at your W-2 to having 100 clients who are your boss in the business world. So I just want to say, like, a lot of times being a business owner is an avoidance tactic because maybe we're not really excelling over here. So let's go try it over here. And just be clear, if you stink over here, you're still going to stink over here, right? So let me
Right.
get that out of the system. Now that we have that, right? What we found is that the truth is most business owners would tell you that they're not practicing avoidance practice. They're searching for freedom. The same reason that people want to own a chicken coop in their backyard. It's much cheaper to go to a local farmer market and buy, $10 a dozen of eggs, right? But it's the idea of freedom and the idea of, hey, we have the ability to produce our own food, right? That's the same thing with being a bit. We have the ability to produce our own income. Nobody's going to cap us, right? So what we've created is something called the Freedom Framework. And the Freedom Framework is there to help you go from entrepreneur, where you're really excited about getting this business started, to entrepreneur, where, okay, oh my gosh, the same shackles that I had in my W-2 job, I now have in my business. I'm working, instead of 40 hours, I'm working 70 hours, right?
Mhm.
Instead of having two, three managers, I've got 100 clients that are managing me, right? So all of a sudden, we're trapped in a business and we can't pass the Italy test. What's the Italy test? We can't go to Italy for 2 to 3 weeks and not come back with either a significant loss of income
Right.
or a dumpster fire, right? And so what we're trying to do through this freedom framework here is help people go from entrepreneur to entrepreneur, which is typically where we meet them, to untrappedpreneur, where there's freedom, not just our independence and freedom from the business, but the business's independence and freedom from us, where it's actually working without us. That's when you own a true business. Until then, you just own a job.
Right. Right. Exactly. Um, when working with these business owners and stuff, because many of us, you'll feel overwhelmed with, okay, like you already said it, the healthcare cost and all these other things. So we have all of these expenses and stuff, not just in our personal lives, but we also have it from the business. And lots of times business owners don't have a clear line drawn between the two. They kind of look at it, oh, it's all one. Obviously, that's not a good thing because you can get in trouble with all of
Yep.
that. How do you help them deal with these monthly expenses and help them become, where they're not overwhelmed by all of it?
And hey, I was in the same. First of all, let me just say this. I've been in that boat. I've been there, done that. Because the truth is that our businesses are our babies. And by the way, I've got a 2-year-old and a 6 month old, and I love them dearly. But I spent 15 years of my life building my business, right?
Right.
And so, yes, as much as I will sacrifice for my own kids, I arguably have sacrificed way more for my own business. So when it comes to reinvesting in the business, what we found is that business owners just blindly reinvest the money into the business, right? And what they fail to think about is, hey, this business is here to get us personally wealthy. There's no other reason for it. Okay.
Right.
Right. That is what it needs to be there for. It needs to be there to work for you. Now, the truth is, we've all heard this saying. The truth is we work a ton for our business and very rarely do we get it to work for us. Well, when it comes to finances, it has to work for you, or once again, shut it down and go get a W-2. You'll be so much better off, right? So what I've done recently after my journey of becoming a business owner, I realized I didn't have a framework for how I paid myself, right? All the money came into one account, all the expenses went out. I would pay myself, a salary or so on on a monthly basis, but it was never enough. So then I would pull more money out. And so what I did actually, and I don't know if you like this book, don't like this book, but I did read the Profit First book, right? And with Profit First, whether it's right or whether it's wrong, it gives you a framework. I do not follow their framework to a T. I customize it for myself, and each business owner is going to be a little bit different in how they do this. But it's the idea of at least giving you a framework of, okay, 50 cents of every single dollar that comes in is here to run the business. Okay. 20 cents is set aside to go to Uncle Sam, 30 cents or so set aside for the business owner. Now all of a sudden, I've got a budget for my business that I can work in. And I really want to hire that marketing person, but it doesn't fit into the budget. So I need to get thrifty. I need to get creative. Maybe I need to do some of this stuff myself. And what we found is that when money is flowing, we throw money at problems, and it's amazingly the problems never go away, right? So what we found is when we put a cap on how much we can spend on our business, all of a sudden we get creative around solving these problems, and we really prioritize well, right? So whether or not those ratios work for you and your business, the idea here is coming up with some framework where we are rewarding ourselves for all this hard work. I'm just going to throw something: the emotional sweat equity that goes into running a business. Nobody ever talks about that, but I can't be present at dinner at night. It's hard as hell, right? The biggest cost of running a business is that when my employees go home at 5 o'clock, I don't. Right. Now, when I say I don't, it doesn't mean I'm not there. It just means I've got to fight like hell to be there. Right. And so that's what we need to understand, is that eventually one day we need to be able to sell this business. And what we're really getting compensated for is the emotional sweat equity that we put in over those decades to build this. Right. But we need to be building our own financial independence along the way before we sell.
Yeah. I think that lots of times also in going through that, it's making sure that you have the processes set up, because so many people, again, the solopreneur, or whatever title you want to give it, it's in our head. It's not down on paper. So that's goes back to the whole, you can't go to Italy because you're the only one who knows how everything runs. And if something doesn't go right, have always been there to troubleshoot, be the fireman, whatever terminology you want to use. And when you're not there, that's not happening. So so what is it that you're really selling if you
Yeah.
don't have all of that, set up?
Absolutely. That's your intellectual property right there, right? That's your IP, is your systems and your processes here. And so one of the books that I buy almost every single business owner is this book called Checklist Manifesto. It's written by a surgeon that says, hey, mistakes decrease significantly. It doesn't matter how good you are, how many times you've done it, when we have a checklist. Now, here's the thing. Checklists only work if you follow it. Right.
Yeah.
And so when we're building out our SOPs, and we use Monday.com for ours, our checklist is built into that for every single client. Make sure we're not missing steps, because it infuriates me when we miss steps. Right. And so that being said, when it comes to the checklist manifesto, there's a lot of mental work that goes in as a business owner. Pretty soon, you're going to have staff, if you don't already, that can do this stuff for you. Right. So our SOP, my staff is the one that updates it, not me, right? My staff is the one that's constantly updating it. Now, I would also say is this: we have the advent here of AI, where you can drop your checklist and your SOPs and create your own customized chatbot. So now all of a sudden, your SOP is is a living, breathing thing that your staff can go in and say, hey, how do we do XYZ? And it's going to put out something. And I just want to warn you early on, it's going to be completely wrong, right? You got
Oh
to
yeah.
train it. You got to train it. But then you say, okay, hey, oh, wait, you said this. Hey, I want you to answer it this way next time, right? Well, now it knows, right? And we just do this over and over and over again. And eventually, what you're going to create is the ability to have an employee. Most people are not using AI the way that they should right now. They're
Right.
using it to look up dumb questions that they think of and things like that, right? Which is certainly fun to do that. But if we're really going to use this to its max advantage, we need to be a leader in the AI space, dumping our SOPs, dumping our checklist into this, creating a chatbot so that if somebody brand new comes off the streets here and they've got a question, they can go to that and make it a rule that they go there and ask it first before they come to you. It's going to save you a lot of time.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. Um, when you're dealing with young families and stuff that are kind of just first starting out, and we talked a little bit earlier about how pre-COVID and right after COVID, money was cheap. Now
Totally.
people have all of this debt. They may have student loan debt, and they have hey, we bought our first house and all this other stuff. Oops, we're having a kid now.
Yeah.
So now
Yeah.
there's more constraints with cash flow and stuff like that. How do you help them with that and prioritize, you know, what needs to be paid first, or whatever the plan is from the cash flow?
Totally, totally. It's been a challenge. Oh my gosh, it's been a challenge. Inflation is real, and it's hitting millennials the hardest because we're the ones with kids, right?
Right.
So, typically inflation is going to hit the people who are spending the most. So, I tell everybody if somebody were to come to me right now and say, "Hey, I need you to save another couple grand a month." Into something, I would bring out my budget and say, here's my nanny, here's my mortgage at 6.8% interest, right? Here's our food budget right now. Here's our new Jeep Wagoneer that we needed to buy because we have all this shit that we got to tote around everywhere,
Right.
right? And here's the bill for that, right? And it would be blown away, right? And I don't, I think that the parental generation, or my parents' generation, my parents around 70, I think they're starting to see that, right? Because not to pick on baby boomers at all, but typically they're like hard ass. Well, you didn't have to buy that Jeep Wagoneer. I was like,
Right.
okay, all right, sure. I could have also stayed in my 2 bedroom, 1 bath, place and had raised 2 kids there too, right?
Right.
But I think that there's actually been a shift lately to say, these millennials aren't as bad as we gave them credit for, starting on millennials not as dirty of a term as it used to be. And all of a sudden there's this new book out there called Die with Zero, which is saying, why are you waiting to give your money away when your kids are 60 and they don't need it anymore? They
Right.
need help now, right? And so where I'm getting at in this meandering way is that young families with kids are getting decimated by inflation. And that's actually one of the reasons that we went, 'cause the evolution of my business is everybody in our industry focuses in on baby boomers with a couple million bucks, 2 to 5 million bucks. We call it the mass affluent. And we've got, to be clear, a ton of them in our clientele, right? But what we did, we took a strategic position saying, hey, why don't we go call on this 30-year-old, and they're both programmers that make 250 grand a year, right? A husband, wife with no kids, and let's get them set up on a really good path long term. And that's exactly and we crush it because nobody else was doing it
Right.
at that time, right? And what we found is that we had to shift our strategies just because, okay, well, that $300,000, $400,000 combined income. All right. Well, after we have a kid and nanny a new house, it's just not getting anywhere, right? So what's good about a business owner is they have the ability to change their prices, right? To some extent, right? If they change it too much, then people go elsewhere. But they do have this ability to fight inflation a little bit better than the W-2. Because I mean, shoot, if we were to meet a surgeon right now making 600 grand a year, if I'd met them 10 years ago, I'd been salivating. That'd been one of the best
Right.
one of my best clients, right? Now it's like, it's okay. It's just enough for the wife to stay at home. It's just enough for the kids to go to private school, for them to have a nice home, right? And there's some money left over, not a ton. Whereas if we've got a business owner who's showing 600K of income, we know that they've probably expensed half their lifestyle already.
Right.
Now,
Right.
they're showing 600K of income, but they have a lot more flexibility to do things, right? And so that's why we made a strategic shift to work with business owners, is because we almost had to in this environment.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny you talk about, it's like, hey, husband and wife making 250 each or whatever. And, we're finding that there's a lot of those that are like that, and they're freaking living paycheck to paycheck. And it's just because they didn't do that budget like you're talking about, and they're not looking at that, and they're just kind of spending. So I'm gonna say there's no intent. Where, like with the profit first, theory behind it is that, it's like, yes, I'm putting so much aside for my expenses, which is going to make you look at those expenses more. And is that expense going to help me generate income, or is this just am I wasting my money type thing? And I find that
Totally.
lots of times with individuals that are that W-2, they need to do that, but they're not doing it.
That's right. That's right. I'm blanking on the name right now, but the old Kentucky basketball coach that's now at Arkansas. Oh, shoot, Calipari. Okay.
Calipari.
Yeah, yeah. Calipari was given an interview the other day. He was talking about the NIL and how bad
Oh yeah.
it's setting up people
Yeah.
for the future, right? And he said the only thing worse than being poor is having money and then being poor, right?
Yep.
And that's how a lot of people feel right now. It's like, okay, COVID times, man, we had a lot of time on our hands. We had a lot of money coming in. Money was, wow, it was
Yeah.
pouring in. It was some of my best years best years of business, no doubt. And now we're kind of okay. If I don't want to sound insensitive here, but if COVID was the party, we're in the hangover right now,
Right.
right?
Right.
And so what's happening is all of a sudden we're having to do work that we didn't have to do. What I mean by that is we're having to do the budgeting that we didn't have to do, right? We're having to think twice before spending money. Now, the truth is, Gary, and here's the sad part, is that in my opinion, the biggest inflation is what I call silent inflation. Okay, your escrow on your house,
Right.
maybe you didn't move. Maybe you refinanced at a really good interest rate, right? But just your monthly payment has gone up tremendously because of taxes and
Right.
insurance.
Yep.
And Gary, there's not a damn thing you can do about those two things, right? You can try to appeal, right? But there's
Yeah.
not much you can do about those two things, right? Here's the deal. Your family needs food on the table. Now, whether you go to Publix or you go to Aldi and you try to get a better deal, that's something that you can choose. But at the end of the day, this inflation is hitting everybody, right? And so I do want to say, if anybody's out there that's considering doing some sort of side hustle or something like that, the only way out of this is to make more money. I just want to be clear. You can budget all you want and you can work your butt off, and we can maybe save 250, $500 a month, and it needs to happen. You need to do that, right? However, the amount of revenue you can generate is virtually unlimited. And so what we try to do is we look at every single expense over the last 12 months, and we set them up with a budget. We set them up with software that tracks it, that notifies them when they've gone over budget. But once we have that budget in place there, yes, we're checking in on it. But really, I want our thinking to be, how do we generate more revenue? Because that's the only way to get out of this.
Sure. Sure. Um,
It's also a lot more fun, Gary.
yes. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Um, how do you guys help people? I guess let me back up. First, how do you define good debt versus bad debt? And
Yeah.
then the follow up on that is, how do you help people get out of that bad debt?
Sure, sure. Well, okay. So for the longest time in my career, I've been doing this for 15 years, and let's say 12 or 13 of those 15, interest rates have been sub 4.5.
Hmm.
Okay, which is cheap money. And sometimes even sub three, right? Which was really cheap money. And yet we still had Dave Ramsey going around telling everybody to pay off all their debt.
Right.
right? And to be clear, Dave Ramsey's helped a ton of people get out of debt. That's what he's great with. And that's what maybe 85% of America needs is that hard-nosed conversation right there. But the truth is that debt is an accelerator, okay? And if you have bad habits, it can really accelerate you into bad places. So it's not for everybody. But if you have good habits, debt can really accelerate your wealth building, right? So let me just talk about me personally. I have a ton of debt, right? Why? Because I have 6 rental homes. All right. Got 6 rental homes that pay me really good cash flow. They've gone up a lot in value. They've been great. They've been inflation resistant. Okay. Um, and so when we look at, oh, well, that's a lot of debt. Oh, Alan's got over, $1.5 million of real estate debt. Okay. Yeah. Well, let's take a look at that. That debt's making me money, right? So that's good debt there. Now, arguably, the new Jeep Wagoneer that my family bought, maybe, arguably that's bad debt. I would actually tell you right now that your primary home, if you're going out and buying a home right now, is probably bad debt. Robert Kiyosaki would tell you it's a liability, not an asset.
Right.
And for the last 10 years, we've been used to home values just really cranking. And now all of a sudden they're stalling, if not going a little bit down here. And not only that, but like we mentioned, home insurance, utilities, taxes are all going up. Next thing you know, primary home's no longer a good asset when we look forward, in my opinion, right? So maybe your primary home's not good debt like it used to be. Maybe even if you're listening to this and you're itching to buy a house, maybe it's good if you rent. There's more ways to build wealth than through real estate, right?
Sure.
And I've never said that before in my career, except for the last couple of years, right? So when we're looking at good debt here, it's the idea of, hey, you know, um, Gary, you put your money into a bank, hopefully you have it in a high yield savings account, but you probably have some in just a normal checking savings account that gives you 0.005, right?
Right.
Well, guess what? The bank's not sitting on that money. They're going to take that money and they're going to loan it out. Right now it's roughly 6, 7% interest rate. Typically, historically, it's going to be closer to 4 or 5, right? But they're going to loan that out to somebody, and that person's going to go buy an asset. For this instance, let's call it a real estate. Let's call it a rental real estate, right? Now, all of a sudden, the question is can you make better than 7%? You're borrowing at 7. Can you make better than 7, right? If the answer is yes, which for a business line of credit, maybe the answer is heck yes, because we can go get this new piece of machinery that's going to drive this new revenue here. Maybe it's heck yes, because we can go buy our real estate and we can do cost segregation, bonus depreciation to help us
Yeah.
out on our taxes there, right? So even though 7% of an interest rate's really high and it may not work on your traditional rental home for a business owner, it might make a lot of sense. So that's what we would consider good debt there. Bad debts, obviously, credit card debts, which it's amazing to me how many business owners have bad credit card debts. And the first
Yep.
thing we do is we help them restructure that debt, typically through a line of credit there. Um, and so that's bad debt, obviously. And then, yeah, of course, you have your lifestyle stuff like a car and a primary home, which are somewhat necessities, right? But not
Right.
necessarily good debt, right? So,
Right.
but the real bad debt is these interest rates at 28% on the credit cards. We see so many businesses that have this
Yeah.
outstanding. That's the first thing that we want to do. We want to go in and refinance that.
Yeah. I do find it amazing the number of businesses that don't have lines of credit.
Yeah.
And it's
What are we
always, oh,
doing?
I don't need that. And it's like,
What?
you
What?
may not
Yeah.
need it right now, but you may need it at some point in time. And lots of times when you need it, it's too late because you're not going to be able to get it.
You know what you get lines of credit on, Gary? Every damn thing you can.
Yeah.
That's what you get lines of credit on, okay?
Right.
Go out right now, get a home equity line of credit. Okay, it's going to cost you a little bit of money. Call 3 or 4 different credit unions, see who's running the deal. Get a HELOC. Why? Because your equity in your house is earning you 0.00% rate of return all right now. Okay, and forevermore, it's not just a right now thing. Yes, your home's growing, but the equity in there is not doing anything.
Right.
And if you have it, at least you have liquidity. What's liquidity? Liquidity is safety. What is liquidity? Liquidity is the ticket to the game. Now, all of a sudden, if you wanted to, you can borrow against that home equity line of credit to go do that real estate, to go start that own business, right? To go do hard money lending where you're getting 18%, right? You have the ability. You know, it's get a line of credit against. You get a line of credit against your investments, not your IRAs, not your Roth IRAs, not your 401ks, but your taxable investment accounts, right? You can get a securities-backed line of credit against there. Once again, liquidity equals security. Because if you need money, let's say markets go down, your business suffers, you lose your job, right? Next thing you know, you need a little bit of extra cash. Well, if you don't have that line of credit, that means you have to sell those stocks when they're depressed. That's what we're trying to avoid. It means you're selling when it's a low. Everything you've ever heard about not doing, you've got to do. When we have a line of credit, we have the ability to borrow against them, allow the stocks to recover, but still get that cash that we need right there, right? In the business line of credit, all right, the first thing we do when we meet a business owner is I ask them to rank their accountant, right? Because as we were talking about earlier, Gary, most accountants are tax preparers. They are historians. They're looking backwards. They're not being strategic. They're not taking the time to think forwards. They're calling their client on, April the 12th, asking them if they donated to Goodwill. What are we doing here, right? So we got to get more strategic, more ahead, take time to think on this. So we ask them to rank their accountant on a scale of 1 to 10. Right. We ask them to rank their investment advisor, their insurance broker on this, but we also ask them to rank their banker. And they go, what do you mean banker? Right. I bank with one of the large banks. You fill in the blank there. Right. Well, hey, listen, these large banks that we see, they are really good at servicing two types of people, the ultra wealthy and the everyday consumer. But that mid-sized business,
Right.
right? We need to look for a really good regional banker that's going to set you up with the right accounts, that's going to help you get that business line of credit. The business line of credit, I've used it all the time because, Gary, you're a tax accountant. You've seen this over and over. The biggest challenge I've had in my business is that I'm paying quarterly estimates based on last year's, and my business continues to grow. And when my accountant calls me and he says, Alan, congratulations on a great year, my heart sinks to my stomach because I
Yeah.
know what he's about
Yeah.
to say,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so, I'm not ashamed to say I've used my business line of credit to pay Uncle Sam before. I didn't want to be in
Sure.
business with Uncle Sam. So I chose not to, and I borrowed against it and then paid it back, right? But my point is, you never know whether it's things are going really bad or things are going so good that you get a surprise tax bill. You never know when you're going to need liquidity. You got to get it when times are good, when credit is healthy, because if you wait till times are bad, they may not give it to you.
Sure. Sure. So, you talked here a little bit about, ranking, these professionals and stuff, and, you know, go back to the accountant because this is, obviously it's my world. Um, when you were working with business owners and you find out that, hey, that, the they rank their accountant or whatever as a 2 or even a 5, how do you help them analyze what it is that they should be looking for in an accountant, making sure that they have the right engagement with the accountant? Because there's many times that I've had it to where people are like, "Well, you're my CPA, you're supposed to do that." It's like, well, no, you hired us to do this. You
Yeah.
didn't hire us to kind of do
Yeah, you're
everything.
not the fractional CFO, or maybe you
It-
are in some but they didn't hire
correct,
you for that, right?
correct.
So my favorite exercise, Gary, is once again when I asked them. There's about 10 professionals. I asked them to rank them on a scale of 1 to 10, and it's amazing when we add up the 10 how low that score is.
Hmm.
Now I say, Mr. Business Owner, if I were to tell you that your chief operating officer in your company was a 5 out of 10, what would you do? Oh, I'd fire him. Oh, yeah, I'd get rid of I'd find somebody new. Oh, yeah, of course. You would not tolerate this behavior, this performance in your own company. Yet
Right.
when I look at your professional team, right? Accountants, attorneys, investment advisor, insurance, 401k, you consistently have underachievers on here, right? Now, I want to let you know, Mr. Business Owner, that's across the board. And by the way, when you have a 10 out of 10, of anything, oftentimes that 10 out of 10 can really grow fast, and maybe they're only 7 out of 10 now, right? 6 out of 10, right? Gary, we see this all the time with accountants, right? They're 10 out of 10, and then they get so damn big that it's hard for them to keep up because good accountants are hard to find, right?
Right.
And same exact thing with every profession, and same exact thing in my world too, right? And so what we try to tell business owners is that, okay, we make this analogy of owner, coach, QB. Okay. So think about Jerry Jones sitting up in his box as the owner, right? That's the business owner. And they've hired me as the coach, right? To assemble the right team. Okay. Put that right team in the right spot and make certain that that right team knows the play call. Because how many times does the accountant actually talk to the attorney? Okay. And the answer is very little, very little. Then how many times do those two talk to the financial advisor? Very little. So the idea is, okay, if we can find you a 10 out of 10 attorney, 10 out of 10 accountant, 10 out of 10 financial planner, put them on the same team with the same play call, right? And knowing, hey, we're not just calling plays for the next. We got 3, 4 plays. We got these 3, 4 series lined up, right?
Right.
The chances of getting the football into the end zone and finding success is very high, right? So, what to answer your question though, is not everybody, and it's going to sound awful, not everybody has earned the right to have a 10 out of 10 accountant. They just haven't. Gary, I'm certain that you have minimums, right? Not and so it's important for us to say, hey, you know what? It's not worth it to you to pay this accountant yet. We're not there yet,
Right.
right? And for a lot of W-2s, here's a good example. TurboTax is just fine, right?
Right.
For illegal stuff, there's a lot of AI legal stuff that will do simple will and trust. It's just fine, right? As long as we get notarized, it's just fine, right? But as things get more complex, you are going to need true professionals that help you, and it's an investment, right? And you look at it that way, not an expense, but an investment there, right? So it's helping them understand when that time is that they need to switch, and then obviously helping them find the right people to switch to for their particular business.
Right. I think the big piece with that is, yes, you need to find the right people, but you also have to understand what you're hiring them, or you're consulting with, whatever term you want to use, that you want them to do. Because I think lots of times, people say, oh, well, I got my attorney. It's like, okay, but what does this attorney do? And they forget that there's attorneys that are specialized to do certain things, and you can't always expect that person that is great at employment law is writing all of your contracts and stuff like that. So there, you got to make sure that you do that. And I think the other thing that you got to do is make sure that you have that conversation with them. Hey, this is what I'm expecting to get from you, just like you do with your employees. Hey, this is what I'm expecting. And then you can build out that relationship to make sure that, yep, yes, I can give you all of that you want, and then some, but this is what it's going to cost you to do it. And I like how you say that this is an investment. It's not an expense, because truly it is. If you want to grow and you want to do better with any of your professionals, it's an investment, that you're making. And I think you're 100% right. And many people don't do this, is, get the hell out of the way and let your professional team talk.
Yep.
Most
Yep.
of the time, if your professional team is talking, they're not sending you a bill for
Yep.
talking and everybody saying on the same page. I
Yeah.
think that
Except
that,
for those damn attorneys, Gary. Those damn
well,
attorneys
yes,
will,
that's that,
they'll
yeah,
charge you
yeah,
every 7 minutes,
right, right,
They love talking to me. They're like, oh,
right,
Alan's calling. Let me call.
yeah, yeah. I think it's one of those things. I mean, and the other thing that I like with business owners is to have your board of advisors that aren't your friends, because
Yes.
you need somebody that's going to hold you accountable.
Yep.
Um, and your friends aren't going to do that, or most of
No, they're
them aren't.
not.
Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
may
Your
have you
friends
may
and your
have one
employees.
that will, buck the system, but most of the time they're not, because they don't, your friends, they don't want to hurt your feelings.
Totally, totally. Your friends, your employees whose livelihood depend on it, right?
Right.
It's really easy. I mean, going back to a sports analogy, Michael Jordan was one of the best basketball players and one of the worst basketball owners in history. And Charles Barkley went in and said he's got a bunch of yes men around him. Well, then
Yeah.
next thing you know, Michael Jordan doesn't talk to Charles Barkley anymore, right?
Right.
So as a business owner, you need to know that you are susceptible to yes man thinking, right?
Yeah.
Yes thinking, where everybody's, oh, that's a great idea. It's almost like Chat GPT all over again. Oh,
Yeah.
wonderful question. How bright are you? Right? Like,
Right.
oh, thank you. I thought that was a good question. Like, okay, no, you need to have somebody in your corner that's willing and able to critique everything you do. And your employees are not that. They're not able to
Yeah.
do that. They're not,
Yeah.
right? And the truth is that if you hire me, you're going to be paying me, but I've got plenty of other clients. I don't have time to worry about your feelings all that much, right?
Right.
We're gonna shoot you straight here, just same way, Gary, you probably are. And it doesn't mean that we're not it doesn't mean that we're not empathetic here to the situations, but you're paying us to tell you the truth, right? Whether it's good or bad news on
Right.
there, right? But
Right.
I would say this, the best question that I started asking people, it's not if they have an accountant, if they have an attorney, if they have a financial advisor. No, it's asking them to rank them on 1 to 10, because what I found, and we train all of our referral partners on this. If you ask people if they have a financial planner, they're going to say yes, even if they don't. They're just
Right.
embarrassed that they don't, right? But if you tell them to rank it on a 1 to 10, it's amazing. Well, the guy calls me twice a year. I guess we've done good in the market. Hell, everybody's done good in the market the last couple of years, right? So, when you ask them to rank them on 1 to 10, it's amazing. And oftentimes they'll say, well, I do it myself. Okay, well, how would you rank yourself
Right.
on it, right? And it's never very good,
Yeah.
So anyways, I just feel like, hey, if you're a business owner, if you take anything from this, write down all of your professionals, from your banker to your realtor to your mortgage lender to attorneys, accountants, investment advisor, insurance advisor, 401k, commercial insurance, and rank them on 1 to 10. And if they're 7, they're on the, kind of on the
Right.
hot seat. If they're below 7, we need to search around. And the truth is that people tolerate this poor performance because they don't want to take the time to search. They don't
Right.
know. The truth is there's a million accountants out there. There's so many
Yeah.
attorneys out there, right? If all you did was call up your three best friends that have businesses and ask, hey, who are you using for this or that, right? They'll tell you. All right, well, and then ask them that, hey, how would you rank them on 1 to 10? And if they're giving you a 10, you need to talk, right?
Right.
So but that's what I feel like we do now is, this is not a full time job. This is a full team job, and you have a really good team to get you to success, whatever that is for you.
Sure. Sure. So, Alan, we've had great conversation, covered a whole lot of good stuff. I think the listeners definitely should, you know, get a lot out of this. What if people want to reach out to you? They want to learn more about the Business Planning Institute and your book. How can they reach you? Where can they find you?
So if you go, and it's a rather long, but it's spelled exactly as it sounds. If you go to thebusinessplanninginstitute.com, you're going to find a few things there. You'll be able to get in contact with us. But most importantly, there's an assessment on there where you can get a valuation of your company, where it's at, right, and get a true, listen, the true value of your company is what somebody else is willing to pay for it.
Right.
Whether it's going to be somewhat accurate, it's going to be within 10%, I would say, is what we found. But that's beyond the point. It's having a system of tracking the value over time. Typically, we do this once people file their taxes. We get another tax return, so we're able to do that, right? And tracking the value of your business is so important. So if you go to thebusinessplanninginstitute.com, you can contact with us, but you can also get that free estimate on the valuation of your company, which will be really cool because it'll tell you not only where it is, but also where it could be and what you can do to increase the value of that company. Now, the book is actually a different website. It's empowered-money.com, empowered heldt-money.com. And what it is it's an A to Z guide. If you don't want to pay a financial advisor, you can just buy this book for $20. If you follow it, it's exactly what we charge thousands of dollars to do, right? I've got a belief that information's free and it's cheap, so I give it away. But the truth is that all that matters is execution. And, people execute a lot better when you hire somebody to help you do it, right? So what we're doing is kind of giving away our blueprint for $20, I would say, right? But yeah, and on there's a free giveaway of a free financial plan on there as well that you can go and plug in some numbers and get a good idea of where you're heading personally as well.
Great. Alan, I really appreciate your time today. It's been a great talk.
Gary, this has been so much fun. Let's do it again here, sometime in the next year or so. And thanks so much for having me.
Great. Thank you. Hey, this week our guest was Alan Franks, and he founded the Business Planning Institute, and he's the author of Empowered Money. I'll see you guys next week.